I will give a summary about A Christmas Carol, which is a text written in the Victorian age by the writer Charles Dickens. The main character in this text is Mr. Scrooge, which is an old man who hates Christmas. One day before Christmas, his nephew comes by his house and tries to convince Mr. Scrooge to love the Christmas and feel the joy of the Christmas spirit. But Mr. Scrooge hates Christmas so much, and the nephew can't convince him. And then he tells the nephew to leave, but the nephew is kind to Mr. Scrooge and invites him to Christmas dinner the next day. But Mr. Scrooge says no and tells him to leave again, and the nephew leaves. Some minutes after, two gentlemen came to Mr. Scrooge's house and asked for donations for the poor people. And Mr. Scrooge tells the gentleman that his friend died on Christmas Eve, and therefore he hates Christmas and don't want to donate any money. And then he tries to throw the gentleman out and says that he only wants to be alone, but the gentleman tries to convince him to donate some money so that no one should die on the streets on Christmas Eve. But Mr. Scrooge is cold-hearted and threw them out, and then the story ends.
And now to the analysis of the text. The text is set in the Victorian age, as seen here, where all of Charles Dickens' texts usually sets. This can be seen in the story by he mentions workhouse and treadmills and etc., which is common for this period and before. I also have a characterization of the main character Scrooge, or how he behaves in our extract, which is a bit different from the rest of the story. The main information we gain about Scrooge is that he hates Christmas. He says, "Merry Christmas, what right do you have to be merry?" and other stuff like this. It's also mentioned in the text that his partner in business died Christmas Day 7 years earlier from the text, so that could maybe play a part in his hate to Christmas. He's also very egoistic. He says that Christmas has never done anything for him, so he don't know why he should be jolly about Christmas. The themes in the story, there really is none in this extract, but we have a acquaintance with the story. So we know this extract is a build-up to a character development, which is about Mr. Scrooge going from hating Christmas to actually enjoying Christmas and wants company, which he ends up getting.
Now we'll move on to a bit of more discussion and put this text into a bigger perspective and see how it fits in with the rest of that time period and other things. So first of all, the text is very fitting for the time. It's very good at showing these differences that existed among people. For example, on one hand you have the nephew who is grateful for Christmas and cheerful, who really loves what it stands for and has the optimism that some people have at this time. And then on the other hand you have the person as Scrooge, who is really largely against Christmas and only wants things that can help him and further his or make his fortune even bigger or help his company grow even more. Also, Scrooge is a very conservative person and believes in the common ways and believes that there should not be done anything more for the poor people than what's already being done. As for example, when he asked about if the workhouses are still in order, and the two businessmen or the two gentlemen say, yeah, they are. Then he says, okay, fine, then let them go in there, or let them go into prisons if they can't afford to support themselves. This really shows the two big sides and two big ways of thinking in these Victorian ages. That there were the people who were really positive and looking forward to what was going to happen, and then there were also the more pessimistic people who just didn't want anything special to happen, who didn't believe that anything special was going to happen, and they only wanted to help themselves get farther in life. To refer to some of what the Jonas said in his characterization and analysis, Scrooge is really this bad person that works against how what the positive people are thinking and saying. And yeah, if we just, for example, now take the bit we saw of David Copperfield, where he goes into London and lives with this businessman, and he says something that we can show us and see from this that Scrooge might be living by, that if your annual income is only slightly larger than your annual expenses, you'll forever be happy. But if your annual income is just a fraction smaller than your annual expenses, you'll forever live a life in pain and suffering, and you'll end up in these workhouses or in prison for not paying that. And so that might be a reason that Scrooge he doesn't want to end up in this. He's happy with how his life is right now. He's satisfied with things, so he doesn't want anything to change. He wants everything to stay the same as they are. And if we have this knowledge of how the text is gonna continue, we can really see that this helps build this image of Scrooge as this evil person who hates everything around him, hates everything that's not directly supporting him. But then further on in the text, he's shown by these Christmas spirits what will happen if he does not do it, or if he does not change his way of life right now. So in this extract that we read now, we don't see any development in his character. We don't see any development in any characters because the time span is so short. It might be maybe 5 minutes or so in his office. That's all we see. But during the night where the spirits come and visit him, he's slowly developing this new character where he's happy, and he becomes caring of others, and actually end up going to his nephew's Christmas dinner, and actually ends up enjoying himself there.